Alright, fair warning. This is one of those stories that makes you question whether World War II was run by military professionals or by a committee of extremely confused office workers with clipboards. Because today we're talking about the man, and honestly several men, who escaped German POW camps not by digging tunnels, not by forging documents, not by disguising themselves as guards, but by doing something so stupidly casual that it should not have worked even once. He made up a fake name on the spot, said it with confidence, and the Nazis just let him walk out. Yes, this actually happened, multiple times. But the most famous version is tied to Lieutenant Commander James "Jimmy" Buckley, an Allied pilot whose survival strategy can best be described as winging it so hard the universe got confused. Now, to appreciate how insane this is, you have to understand what a Stalag Luft camp was like. These weren't chaotic frontline prisons. They were run by the Luftwaffe, which means they had rules, timetables, paperwork, inspection routines, and enough German bureaucracy to make even a coffee machine nervous. Prisoners were counted every morning, every evening, sometimes in between, sometimes again because someone miscounted, sometimes a third time because the guard didn't trust the second guy's math. Everything depended on lists. Long, boring, painfully detailed lists. And if something wasn't on the list, it basically didn't exist. Enter our man. He's been captured after his aircraft goes down, dragged through the usual processing, photographed, tagged, cataloged like a library book, and thrown into a camp where escape planning was basically a full-time occupation. Most POWs spent months preparing the perfect breakout, forging papers, sewing uniforms, practicing German phrases, hiding dirt from tunnels inside their clothes like squirrels hiding snacks for winter. But not this guy. This guy wasn't planning anything. He wasn't part of some grand scheme. He wasn't digging tunnels or bribing guards or filing down wire cutters in the workshop. When his moment came, it wasn't because he was ready. It was because chaos handed him an opportunity, and he said, "Yeah, I'm taking that." So here's what went down. A German officer comes into the compound with a clipboard, and a clipboard in a POW camp is basically the Grim Reaper of administrative inconvenience. He starts reading names. Prisoners shuffle around. Some are being moved to work details. Some are being transferred to other camps. Nobody knows why, and the guards never bother explaining it anyway. Our guy is standing in the middle of the crowd, minding his own business, when the officer looks up from his list, points straight at him, and asks for his name so he can check him off. This is where everything should have gone normally. He should have given his real name, been put wherever he was supposed to be put, and the story would have ended right there. But he freezes, not out of fear, but out of complete confusion. Because the guard's list doesn't seem to match the men in front of him. People are being moved around. Names are being misread. Numbers aren't matching. And the whole scene feels like watching a group project fall apart in real time. And in that little pocket of chaos, something incredible happens. When the guard asks for his name, his brain doesn't supply Lieutenant Commander Buckley. It doesn't supply anything accurate or helpful or even remotely useful. Instead, he blurts out the first name that comes to mind, a name he had never used before, a name that belonged to absolutely no one, a name powered entirely by improvisation and adrenaline. And the guard, instead of questioning it, instead of cross-checking the prisoner list, instead of shouting for backup, simply nods, scribbles it down, and waves him into the transfer group. Just like that. The Germans just accepted his new identity because it was written on the clipboard, and once something was written on the clipboard, that was law. And inside his head, he's thinking, wait, did that actually work? Are we doing this? Is this real right now? But he doesn't question it. He doesn't hesitate. He simply commits to the role like Germany's most confused method actor. So he steps forward, falls into line with the transfer prisoners, and walks through the gate of Stalag Luft, like it's the world's most depressing checkout counter. And the most unbelievable part? This wasn't luck. It wasn't a one-time accident. This style of escape worked again and again in multiple camps, because once the German paperwork said you existed, you existed. And once it said you were supposed to leave, you left. And that's only the beginning. Because what happens after he clears the gate? When he realizes he is now free, on foot, in Nazi territory, with no plan, no map, no supplies, and an identity that technically doesn't exist, that's when the story gets even crazier. So he walks out of the camp with this transfer group, and the moment he steps past the wire, it starts sinking in that he has just done something absolutely ridiculous. He has no forged papers, no instructions, no idea where this group is even going, and definitely no understanding of what Thompson is supposed to be doing for the German war effort. But the beautiful thing about German bureaucracy during World War II is that it was so tangled and overcomplicated that half the time even the guards didn't know why things were happening. They were just following whatever the clipboard told them to do. He blends into the formation, not because he looks like he belongs, but because nobody in that line looks like they belong. The entire group is this chaotic mix of tired prisoners being shuffled around like school kids during a fire drill. Everyone looks confused. Everyone looks irritated. Everyone is waiting for someone else to explain what's happening. And in that fog of low-level administrative panic, he actually fits in perfectly. As they start marching down the road, he realizes the guards aren't keeping detailed track of who's who. They're not reading faces, they're not doing head counts the way they did inside the camp. They're simply escorting a list, not a group of people. If the list says 20 prisoners are supposed to be on the road, then the guards will make sure 20 shapes wearing coats are walking in front of them. It doesn't matter if number 7 is secretly a figment of someone's imagination. As long as the silhouettes add up, the system believes everything is correct. And he starts to understand the hilarious, terrifying truth. The Germans trust the paperwork more than they trust their own eyes. The group keeps moving until they reach a set of crossroads, where a German NCO gives quick directions. One batch of prisoners is going to a labor site, another batch is being moved to a rail station, and another is being sent for medical inspection. The guards start splitting the group with the kind of energy you see in store employees who were told 5 minutes ago that corporate is visiting. Everything is rushed, irritated, and very slightly chaotic. And this chaos is exactly what keeps him alive. Because while the guards are bickering over which subgroup is supposed to go left or right, he quietly slips from one cluster to another, and it works because the guards aren't counting individuals. They're counting shapes moving in groups. Every time a German officer looks frustrated at the paperwork, he blends deeper into the background, because nothing makes a man less noticeable than being near someone who looks busier and angrier than he does. Eventually, he ends up in the group being marched toward the rail station, and he just goes with it. He has no idea where this train is going, who is supposed to be on it, whether Thompson is actually on this list, or if he just accidentally inserted himself into the logistical equivalent of a family reunion for strangers. But at this point, committing to the bit is the only strategy he has. Turning back would get him caught. Asking questions would get him exposed. Looking nervous would get him shot. So he adopts the most valuable survival tactic in any rigid military system. He acts like someone who is extremely familiar with being ignored. By the time they reach the station, the guards are distracted dealing with a pile of cargo, another group of prisoners, and a conductor who clearly hates his job. They're shouting, finger-pointing, and paperwork being waved around. And in the middle of this wonderfully dysfunctional scene, our man sees something he never expected to see that day. An opportunity that is so stupidly simple, he almost laughs out loud. A small group of prisoners is being checked for transport, but another group, standing off to the side, has clearly already been checked and cleared. They're waiting to board, and the guard supervising them is so overwhelmed with everything happening around him that all he's doing is keeping people inside an imaginary box-shaped area around him. So our guy drifts toward that group, slow, casual, controlled, like a man looking for a seat at a crowded cafeteria and hoping nobody tells him he's in the wrong section. No one stops him, no one asks anything. He steps into the cluster, stands shoulder to shoulder with men who probably have no idea who he is, and becomes part of the already processed group. And just like that, he has bypassed the only real checkpoint between the POW camp and the outside world. When the train arrives, the guards don't check names, don't ask for identification, don't verify paperwork. They simply do the same thing they've been doing all morning. Count silhouettes, shove them forward, and trust the clipboard. As long as the number matches what's written down, nobody cares who's actually getting on the train. And this man, this pilot who invented a name 30 minutes ago purely because panic hijacked his mouth, is now boarding a German military transport heading deep into the countryside as a person who does not exist. And he realizes, as the train starts moving, that he has somehow pulled off the easiest, dumbest, most perfectly timed escape he could ever dream of. And now he has to figure out what to do next, because getting out of the camp was only step one. He still has the entire German war machine between him and freedom. And he is doing it with absolutely no plan, no identity, and no idea where this train is even taking him. The train rattles deeper into Germany, and he's sitting there trying to look like a man who absolutely belongs on this exact train, on this exact day, under this exact set of instructions that he absolutely does not have. The other prisoners around him are tired, dirty, resigned, each one dealing with their own version of misery, but they all have one thing he doesn't. They actually exist in the German paperwork. They have names on lists. They have numbers assigned to them. They have records. If one of them disappears, the guards will know. If he disappears, Germany will just assume someone miscounted again. The train eventually slows as it approaches a rural station, the kind of place where nothing exists except a few tracks, a warehouse, and a group of guards who look like they've been annoyed since 1939. The prisoners start climbing out, forming lines, getting sorted into groups for new work details. And this is the moment he realizes, the longer he stays in this system, the greater the chance someone finally notices that Thompson was created by accident during a moment of pure brain fog. So he decides to step out of the system entirely. There's a moment, the kind of moment that only comes once. When a guard's back is turned, another guard is busy yelling at a wagon driver, and half the prisoners are clustered so tightly that no one can tell who's who. Our man sees all of this lining up, and instead of panicking or hesitating, he does the one thing the German military was never prepared for. He quietly peels away and walks toward the back of the station like he's going to fetch something he forgot. He steps behind the warehouse. No one follows. No dogs bark. There's a road, a tree line, a narrow dirt path that someone probably uses to haul grain carts, and he heads straight for it. By the time the guards finish rearranging their paperwork and shouting at each other about which group is supposed to be marching where, he's already gone, evaporated into the landscape like he had never been there. And that's when the real ordeal begins, because escaping a POW camp is one thing, but navigating Germany during wartime as an undocumented ghost is a whole different nightmare. He has to move only at night, avoid farmhouses, avoid patrols, avoid people who might talk, avoid people who might help, because anyone kind enough to offer water might also be patriotic enough to call the local garrison. He moves through fields, forests, ditches, anywhere he won't be seen. The only tool he has left is the same one he used at the camp gate, the ability to make decisions quickly, confidently, and without overthinking them to death. He follows distant train lines, he skirts villages, he steals the occasional potato from a field, and apologizes to the air because war makes everyone do strange things. Days pass, nights blur together, the entire world becomes a map made of risk. And then, one morning, after walking until his legs feel like they're made of gravel, he notices something, the distant rumble of artillery far off in the west. Not German artillery, not German patterns, He listens again, more carefully, and realizes he is hearing the front. The Allied front. The place he's been trying to reach without ever actually knowing where it was. He pushes toward the sound. It takes hours, maybe more. Eventually, he sees smoke columns from distant fighting. That's when he slows down, because running into a random artillery exchange is a terrible way to end a miraculous escape. He follows the edges, staying low, until he reaches a stretch of forest overlooking a valley road. And on the road, he saw American vehicles. The actual Allied jeeps. And when a jeep slows down near a bend, he steps out from behind a tree with his hands visible, not raised in surrender, but held calmly, because he has been outthinking danger for days now, and he's not going to break the streak by startling a man with a Thompson. The soldiers freeze, stunned for a moment before one of them finally calls out, "Where the hell did you come from?" And he just gives the most exhausted, perfectly human answer imaginable. And when he tells them how he escaped, how he made up a name and let German bureaucracy do the rest, the American lieutenant in the Jeep can't even keep a straight face. He just laughs. When they eventually bring him back to Allied lines, the officers taking his statement don't know whether to file a report, shake his hand, or buy him a drink. Because here's the truth. The Great Escape, the wooden horse, the Colditz glider, all legendary. But none of them hold a candle to the pure, outrageous simplicity of this escape. It is, without exaggeration, one of the greatest accidental genius moments of World War II. The kind of thing that shouldn't have worked once, let alone multiple times across different camps. But that's the thing about rigid systems. If you hit them at just the right angle, with just the right level of confidence, sometimes they crack open like eggs. And honestly, that might be the most beautiful escape of the entire war. If you are still here, subscribe, because on this channel we are going to uncover every single war hero that deserves the acknowledgement. It's going to be a long journey, so hit a subscribe and let's uncover all war heroes together.